Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers, and welcome back to another mini episode. In these mini episodes, I just condense something down small, often from a listener or someone on Instagram who's asked me some questions, and today is no different. If you ever have a topic you'd like my thoughts on, advice with, please feel free to reach out, basically. So this one, the pros and cons of being friends with benefits. Friends with benefits is something I know, I'd say pretty well. I probably had a lot of friends with benefits over the years, especially in my 20s. But there's something I did a lot because it was something that I enjoyed and had some benefits for me. They're not for everybody, but such is life, and not everything is for everybody. So I want to go through the cons first, because I think, that just feels like what I want to do. And before I do that, actually, just let you know, I've got a masculinity workshop that's coming up on the 23rd of February. Really looking forward to this one. I'm just building it out. I finished building it already. But there's a lot in there. There's a lot about, toxic masculinity, how as men, we can connect better with ourselves, with each other, things around sex and relationships. I've put in there purpose and the importance of that and how to find purpose. There's going to be some conversation about that as well. So it's a really jam-packed event. I've sold quite a few tickets already. So if you're going to come along, you won't be the only man there. You're never going to be the only man there in one of my workshops, but that's for that. It's in all that's in the show notes. So today's episode, the pros of friends with benefits. You've got someone who you can turn to when you feel a bit lonely some nights, That's definitely, maybe you're just sitting at home watching Netflix and you just want someone to keep you company, and, someone you can have sex with, someone, it's there, basically. That's one of the pros. And then there's the second pro that kind of links to that, was someone you can regularly have sex with. That's something that's definitely there. Friends with benefits. The benefits part is the sex, is the level of sexual intimacy, depending on the arrangement, how much of that actual intimacy you get, but that's depending on you. Another pro can be you're less likely to get hurt. For me personally, there's probably a few times that I really started to like girls I was seeing, but I think we don't have an expectation of the person, and because we don't know the expectation, I feel like a lot of our pain comes with expectation. We're expecting something to happen. And if we expect nothing to happen, even if we care for someone, it kind of lightens the load of any pain that happens, any hurt that happens. Ultimately, another pro is that this can be less demanding on your time than a relationship. Someone in a relationship now, relationship can be, I won't necessarily think the word demanding on your time. They can be, it's a beautiful use of your time, a relationship. But, if you are, for whatever reason, not wanting to put time into a relationship, you can get some of the pros of relationships, but not all of the pros. And one of those is that you are still, I want to say, control of your time, because you're always in control of your time, but you may not have someone else who is expecting your time, depending on the type of relationships you have. Because as I'm working with a lot of clients, relationships don't have to all look the same. You get to design your relationship, but that's a conversation for another day. I've got in here, you can really, a lot of learning about sex and sexual experimentation, just because it's something I experienced myself. I did a lot of experimentation when I was in friends with benefits agreements, and it just meant, I learned a lot about sex. You can also do that in a relationship, but, it was a great ground for learning, a great ground for trying new things and learning about someone else's body. So that can be a really beautiful way to do that through friends with benefits. Another one here is that you can have fun with someone without worrying about where it's going to go. This can be a big concern. I know for me it was a big worry a lot around hurting somebody else, worrying on what they're expecting. If you've been really crystal clear, and this is the key, if you've been really crystal clear of your communication about what the arrangement is and what to expect and what you want and where it's going, and if you've been clear that it's not going anywhere, you just want this and you don't want anything else, then you can have a lot of fun without worrying about where it's going. And that can actually lead to better connection, because a lot of what gets in the way of connection when it comes to dating is the fear of, where's this going? What does this mean? That is, I would say, about 50% of people's worries when it comes to dating. Um, Another pro is that you don't have to worry about playing games. You shouldn't be playing games anyway, but often we get into these games of like, oh, if I text them too quickly, they're not going to like me and blah, blah, blah. Whereas with friends with benefits, that's not really a game you should be involved in. Like I said, you shouldn't be in the game anyway, but I think you're less likely to be involved in that as well. Another pro is that it's better than a one night stand. To be honest, like most of the time, having someone you're regularly having sex with who has some level of emotional care for you and, even just a level of respect and friendship, if the friendship part actually exists, it's going to be better than a one night stand sexually. And also from a point of view of care, morning after care, lunch, breakfast, whatever it is for you, seeing how you are the next day. So yeah, those are some important things. And the last one of the pros, and I think it's important to state this one because I think it actually happens very often. It happened in my life, definitely. It can lead to more. Friends with benefits can lead to relationships. I'm not saying it always does. I don't know what statistics are around this. I'd say for me, it's pretty low. In my personal experience of probably less than 5%. But for some people, this is how they actually form relationships. They start off something casual, something friends with benefits, and then it becomes something more. It does happen. I just don't think it happens like a huge amount for me. But like I said, I know for some other people it's much higher in percentage. But that's just how I was as a person. I say was because that's not how I am much these days. So to the cons, it often really lacks emotional connection. Friends with benefits, and not always, but especially the way some people are, is that if one person is so like worried about someone else falling for them, that they can be very cold in the relationship, and that can be very upsetting for people. So, that lack of emotional connection can actually cause more harm than good. There are times where it's good and times where it's bad. That's how life is. But the thing you have to remember is ultimately, you want emotional connection. The reason why we desire sex, in my opinion, isn't just reproduction, is we desire closeness of another human being, and sex gives us that. But it doesn't really give it to us, because the intimacy, the real intimacy, the multiple types of intimacy, which I've talked about before, cannot just be met through sex. So another thing is, it's very easy to get lost in the lack of emotion and care and be put off by meaningful relationships. That's something that I've had for myself, is that you just kind of get so used to this kind of friends with benefits. You're like, why do I want a relationship? And you kind of forget that relationships have more benefit than what you're getting, because you can't see that, but you probably remember a lot of the cons as well. Another thing that also comes up is the sexual energy that's exchanged. You might be friends with benefits with multiple people, and they might be friends with benefits with multiple people. So there's a lot of sexual energy being exchanged amongst people who don't actually ever meet and see each other. Plus, there's also the concern around, if people aren't careful, STIs can spread very quickly if you're all sleeping with multiple people and people aren't being careful, and so forth. So that's something that you also have to be very mindful of. One of the cons that keeps coming up is jealousy as well. Often in my experience, one person wants more. At least one person, if not both of them, but there's usually one person that wants more than the other, and they're settling for this arrangement because it's better than nothing. That's definitely something that I've seen and I've experienced, and that's really difficult. The jealousy that can come with, like, oh yeah, you tell them, oh, I've seen one of my other friends the other night, and they're like, oh, because in their head they're hoping that they're the only one. That's also a concern. It can really get in the way of you finding a meaningful relationship. I kind of mentioned this before, is that you just stay in these multiple friends with benefits, and you're like, well, I'm having loads of sex, I've got a little bit of emotional intimacy. Why would I want a relationship? Because relationships are bad. I reiterate, you get to design your relationship. If you're not very good at designing a relationship, then, seek some help with that, because, you get to choose what your relationship looks like completely. It's up to you, because you get to be in it. So, it can really get in the way of finding a meaningful relationship. You can get lost in this just endless stream of very shallow sex, very shallow interactions, very shallow, like, relationships. Another thing is, someone almost always gets hurt. This is my experience. I've seen it with friends. I would say most of the time someone gets hurt. Like, what would I say in percentage? And this isn't scientific research. This is my own personal experience. I'd say probably 40 to 60% of the time someone gets hurt. Someone wants more. Someone, was hoping that you wouldn't see someone else, those sorts of things. That's often the situation that I found. So, someone almost always gets hurt. One of the things is, people don't have to be there for you. When you are actually craving some emotional intimacy or someone who's going to look after you and care for you, that person who's your friend with benefits doesn't have to do that. They are under no illusion to really, worry about your problems with your grandma or, blah, blah, blah. It's not their problem because you've made no agreement of that. And yeah, the friends part is there. But from my experience, a lot of people are very light on the friends part of the friends with benefits. It's just the kind of person with benefits, which I don't agree with. I think the friends part is actually quite important. But it means that, you don't always get that level of care and emotional intimacy that a lot of people are actually looking for. One of the things also, one of the cons is it can take its toll on your self-confidence and self-esteem, especially if you find yourself in lots of these arrangements. You meet lots of people who only want to be friends with benefits. You start to think, what's wrong with me? Why does no one want to be with me properly? That sort of thing starts to creep in. So you have to be really mindful of that. There is the other side. You can say that it can actually lead to being more confident if you're having lots of people who desire to have sex with you. But I see that the former is more common in my experience. You also, another con, is you're potentially wasting time with someone who has no intention of being with you. Or you're wasting time, with someone who have no intention of being with in any long-term way. And I think this becomes particularly important when you want a relationship. If you want a relationship and you keep finding yourself in friends with benefits, stop it. That's what I say. Just stop it. Because ultimately you're using your time is not infinite. I think we act these days as if time is infinite when it comes to dating relationships, and it's not. We age ultimately, and I'm not saying that we're useless once we get old, but it's like be on what you want to be on, not just fooling around making other people happy. So yeah, that's my little bit of advice in there today. Sometimes people don't treat each other with respect. That's another con. Sometimes people don't have a little bit of care for someone. They will only call at 2:00 in the morning, or they won't let anyone stay. Like I remember a girl I was seeing in such an arrangement like this, and she didn't ever like anyone staying at her house. So she would, sleep with someone and be like, "Hey, you need to leave. It's 2:00 in the morning. I don't care." And she was a she, but I know of men that do the same thing, or men who won't stay at a house. They won't stay at a woman's house, for instance. We're talking heterosexually, of course. So, sometimes a bit of care and respect is lacking. And another con is someone always, like I said, I've said someone always wants more. Someone always catches feelings and wants more. And that is a big danger, I think, in there, because if you are the person that doesn't want more, if that keeps happening to you, you can feel quite guilty, you can feel quite bad. I'm talking, that's my own personal experience. And then on the other side, if you are someone who keeps, falling for the people you've got friends with benefits, and it keeps happening to you, it can really deflate your confidence, your self-esteem. It can really make you quite pessimistic about, who you are and your value in the world, even though your value is inherent, but it can really drain away at you. So it's important to really note all those cons. I'm just going to note something at the end actually here. I was just reading about a particular study around friends with benefits where they interviewed a load of people. It's a published study by Massier and colleagues, 2020. They found that women are far more likely to hope the relationship either becomes romantic or revert back to friendship without sex, whereas men are far more likely to just hope the relationship stays as it is. And, I'm sure some of us have experienced that. It's not always that way. That is just the averages of their study. So it's worth just knowing that, what do you really want ultimately, I think is a big point here. So that's me for today. Hope you enjoyed this. Share it with someone maybe someone is in friends with benefits agreement at the moment, and they're upset and they're not getting what they want, or, whatever it is. There's probably somebody who could benefit from this. And if you really want, share it on Instagram. That'd be amazing, because it's always great to help me to help more and more people with what I have to say and help them deal with what they're dealing with in life. But until next week, ciao ciao.